4chan is at it again. Why is Nintendo censoring Fire Emblem games? Oh no, she says something slightly different in the official English localization than she did in some fan translation. Oh no. Oh no. This ruins the game somehow. It's just absurd the lengths that these people will go to try and create the narrative that this is somehow unusual, that this only happens to Fire Emblem, that the Fire Emblem is particularly bad about it, that it somehow ruins characters or plots or like it just isn't true at all. And it really does need to be said that like localization is perfectly reasonable and that there's nothing wrong with it. And that these people are just looking for reasons to complain. It's embarrassing how consistent they are with this. I know people who will try and tell you they will never support Fire Emblem again because it's censored, because characters say slightly different things in English than they did in Japanese, and it's just such a laughable concept, and really should be called out for what it is, as just moral grandstanding, completely out of touch, trying to downplay Nintendo because that's the reality of this kind of thing is that the reason you only see this happen, like you only see controversies pop up around Nintendo games, is because this is a method of just downplaying Nintendo games. You don't see anybody talk about localization changes in like I don't know Trails or like Star Ocean or any of these other games that come out, right? But you'll see them like swear up and down that Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was like hugely censored from Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like they will swear that Nintendo completely ruins the script and completely undermines the intentions of the original creators. And it's just like, it's not true. Like at all. Like anybody who looks into this even a little bit can see why this kind of stuff happens and why it's necessary and why it's always been a part of bringing over video games to the Western world, like it doesn't mean anything. And I've gotten really, really tired over the years of seeing these kinds of people getting extremely upset over minor dialogue changes. Like it doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. Okay. And that's kind of the mindset I have is that like I don't want to hear about it at this point. Like, yeah, I know. I don't care. I love these games. I'm going to support the official release. I don't care. Like, yeah. And these people get very, very upset whenever you bring this up because to them, this is like some like egregious thing. This is why you can't support Nintendo or intelligent systems because lines of dialogue are slightly different. And it's just so delusional and so out of touch with reality and just it just feels as if these people are just looking for reasons to complain. That's kind of my mindset, like looking at this kind of thing and seeing how many people are so adamant that like Fire Emblem Engage had some like awful script. Like it's just completely out of touch, okay? Because we saw the same thing with Fire Emblem Fates, right? Everybody insisted the game was censored, and that's what made it so terrible. And the actual problems with that game, which were very much prevalent in the Japanese version, went completely unnoticed by the community, because they wanted to push this moral grandstanding notion that the game's localization was not the problem and not the fundamental, not the script at its core, like it was the original Japanese that fucked up Fates as badly as it was from a storytelling perspective. Like the localization really had nothing to do with it. And Engage is interesting because it seems to be kind of the same thing, but it didn't really take off the same way. I think with Fates, it was just kind of they went out swinging with that, and they tried really, really hard to downplay future Fire Emblem games and to downplay like everything they were doing and to downplay this IP. Because I know a lot of people who like said they were going to boycott it because of this, and it just didn't result in anything. The like Fire Emblem Three Houses became one of the best selling Fire Emblem games ever. So all this cope, all this disappointment, all this rage, all of this like all these delusions, like all of them have just culminated in just this culture that's just kind of circle jerking itself. And much like with the Nintendo, the Pretendo hate community, those guys who claim the Switch 2 is going to fail at launch and only for it to become the best selling console ever made. Like, I think eventually you are going to see a lot of people start to notice that these complaints don't really make a whole lot of sense. I would say like the only reason like they aren't this isn't being bitched about more is purely because people don't know how annoying censor shitters can be. Like, people aren't aware of how people are trying to gaslight others into thinking that like Fire Emblem is just heavily censored in during localization, and it just isn't true at all. That's always been the case, and yet they just insist it's true. They just insist that Fire Emblem is on the way out. They insist that like Fire Emblem is a dead IP, even though it's more popular than ever. And they keep insisting that like above all else that they're the real fans. And that's the issue I have. Like that's the thing I have a problem with is this idea that they are real fans. Because assuming you started playing Fire Emblem in 2003, which by the way was also changed in localization, assuming you started playing Fire Emblem on Game Boy Advance in 2003 when it first came out, if you stop playing at after Fates or never got Fates, the people who started with Awakening and stuck with it throughout probably played more games than you, have more experience with the franchise, and know more about it than you do. So the new Fire Emblem audience, the people who have played the games uh, since Awakening, now have more credibility than these old school fans who can't admit the old games aren't as good as they say they are. Like, and this has been like a reoccurring problem with the Fire Emblem community is this weird sense of elitism, like this idea that Awakening somehow killed the IP, when in reality, Awakening is like one of not the best, but one of the best titles in the series and ushered in this like renaissance for the brand. Like it's just unbelievable how adamant the community is in trying to gaslight people into thinking that Nintendo is on the way out and that they're censoring games and that they're ruining Fire Emblem. And it's just no, it's just completely utterly delusional. Like it is something that we as fans really need to start addressing is that Fire Emblem fans, like every single time one comes out, becomes extremely controversial for some like ridiculous reason. And this is one of the most common. It's the one that you still see people use to weaponize against Fates, use to weaponize against Engage, and it's just something that really needs to be called out because there is absolutely nothing wrong with the localization in these games.